Well, it looks like it is 5 o'clock. So this is a special meeting of the Chuckanut Community Forest Park District at 5 p.m. And it's a hybrid meeting. There is a space where people can go and join the meeting in person. Just to check in with our person on the ground there. Is anybody at our in-person meeting?
Nope, just me. But I do have a note that I have a recording note on here, so I should be the one to receive the video at the end.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And I should note the recording is already on, but just to make sure everyone knows that recording will capture your likeness and image, and that will be made available on our website. So if you choose not to have yourself or the surroundings around you in your time with us, please turn the video off. And you can also call in by phone if you choose not to have the image there. By continuing on, you're consenting to have your image on the website in the video. I'd like to just go ahead and call the meeting to order now at 5:02. Having made that announcement, and just review our mission. Mission of the Chuckanut Community Forest Park District is to ensure the entirety of the property is protected in perpetuity in public ownership, with respect to its ecological, recreational, educational functions, and to serve as a fiscal mechanism through which the district, via tax levy, would pay the City of Bellingham Greenways Endowment Fund loan. It is being recorded, as I said, and I'd like to call roll of the commissioners. John Hymas, you're there.
He is muted right now.
Present.
There he is.
John McLaughlin? I don't see John here yet, but I know that he intends to attend, and I spoke with him earlier. We'll add the recognition that he is here when he does come. Ed Grumbean?
Present.
Thank you, Ed. And Hugh Beatty.
Here.
And I'm Frank James. I'm the president of the commission and happy to meet and greet all of you. I'd like you all have received a copy of our agenda. I'd like you to review that. And while we're moving forward with other things, so that we can have a motion to approve it as soon as you've done that. While you're doing that, I'd just like to introduce our other staff member, Robin, who's actually, I think, in New York City right now. So thank you.
I am.
Thank you for joining us from afar and helping to do the usual good work that you do. I'd also note that John McLaughlin just joined us. John, we already took roll, but we'll note that you're here. Thanks, John. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting?
I motion to approve.
It's moved by Ed. Do I hear a second for approval?
Second.
And seconded by McLaughlin. Thank you, gentlemen. I'd like to raise the question. All those in favor of approving the agenda, raise your hand, say aye.
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 And both see the hands and count the voices. It passes unanimously. General public comments are limited to 3 minutes, and we'll have time for those now. I see there is several guests that are joining us, and I'd like to go ahead and open the meeting to those 3 minutes. I would ask that you do keep the 3 minutes. Everybody's got something to say, and we want to hear it all. So going around the room, and Robin, are you going to assist us in admitting people so that they can speak? Robin, are you there?
Sorry, I have never done this on my cell phone, so I'm definitely a little behind the 8 ball here. Because if this is not a webinar, people are in the meeting, okay. And so you just have to tell whoever asked them to raise their hand, and then tell them they have 3 minutes. So we don't have to do any admitting.
So I'd like to start just by saying this special purpose of this meeting is to review the budget opportunities we have for the next year and the levy that would be associated with those meetings. And also, as a second item, to review progress on negotiating changes to conservation easement. Having said that, I'd like to go ahead and say, Dudley, it's a pleasure to see you. If you just unmute, you have 3 minutes to share with us what you'd like to share today.
Can I come later, please? I'd like
Oh, you can. Sure. Yeah. I'm just going across.
I'm glad to be here, but I'd like to hear other people's comments because
Sure.
I'm just catching. Thank you.
Vincent McCunas, you
Yeah.
are there.
Well,
Please get your hands up.
My question is, do you want comments about the topic of the special hearing or public hearing today?
Thank you for that
Or
clarification.
is this just general comments?
Thank you for that clarification. These are general comments. If you have comments specifically about the special purposes of the meeting, which is to consider the levy and budget and to get an update on the conservation easement progress, please hold those comments until we actually open the hearing on that issue. So this 3 minutes is for anything you want to talk about, but not those issues. They'll be reviewed during the actual discussion of those agenda items.
Fred, I just wanted to mention that we didn't set up tonight as a public hearing. So this general comment section is the place where people could say that, unless you want to ask for comments again later. But there's no official public hearing tonight.
I believe, Rob, I don't think that's quite right, Rob. I think it's a continuation of our prior hearing, actually. So it is a public hearing, and I will reopen it at the appropriate.
Okay, we didn't publicize it as that because that was not my understanding. I thought we were postponing this decision till tonight, not that we were going to have more open public hearings. So that's why I didn't publicize it that way.
Okay, well then perhaps you're right technically. I don't see Bob here. I'll go ahead and
we can still take any comments that people want to make anytime you want to open it for that. So
yeah, well,
I don't think it's an issue that way.
I think most people are probably here to talk about this as a special purpose meeting. So why don't we go ahead and open our meeting formally for comment on the topics we have at hand, specific our budget and tax levy. Or other comments you may make a more general type. Vinsa? I can't hear you. You're muted.
Sorry. I'd like to hear how, after the last meeting, you and Bob Carmichael were going to meet with Nicole and Alan Mariner, and I don't know who else from the city. So I think it would help everybody's commentary to know how that went first before we jump the gun on old news.
I'm happy to report on that. Bob should be here and he might want to add comments too. And Ed Grumbine was also there. John Hymas had some other conflicts, so he couldn't come, and Ed graciously joined us. So we had a meeting on Friday with the park director and the city attorney, Alan Mariner and Nicole. And it was a productive meeting, and I think we made progress, but we didn't really resolve all the issues that we needed to resolve. There were an offer that we made as to how we thought the conservation easement needed to be modified. There was broad agreement, as you remember, Vinsa, in the process of developing the master plan of many of the issues of what should be taken out. And I think that both we and the city agreed on all of those. So those things that were agreed to in the steering committee for the master planning process were reviewed and were adopted by the city and us together. There were remaining issues which are still, even now, unresolved. So that there are future meetings contemplated to resolve and clarify what needs to be clarified. And I would just point out that there was an email from Bob to the commissioners kind of summarizing the legal aspects and offering the current status of the draft that we have. I would broadly characterize it as saying that the key sticking points at this point are that the city does not want to Mr. Mariner represented that he wants to keep all options maximized for the city of Bellingham, that they want as many options as they can and a lack of encumbrance. And he was not interested in creating a document that would create more encumbrances on the city. For our part, what we expressed was that we were very interested in pursuing further modification of the document, which would include eliminating taking certain items and putting them in referring to them in the master plan and the master planning process. As all of you know, master plans can be modified and plan naturally are modified over time. And to have references to various things in the document saying that they would be resolved and clarified and changed in the master planning process, to us and to our council seemed like a violation of the notion of a conservation easement. We paid $3.25 million and didn't get a deed for that. Rather, what we get is a conservation easement for that. And the conservation easement, in our view, is that it should be a fixed set of items that we can negotiate. If they want to negotiate about trails, or they want to negotiate about dogs, or if they want to negotiate about bicycle uses, all those things we talked about fairly extensively, that's something that we believe and should resolve in the conservation easement. As I said, the main upshot is that we were unable to reach agreement, and that if you take a look at Bob's summary of where we're at, basically there was ongoing conversations even today on the phone. We weren't able to, the city was not able to or willing to meet us in person today. But I think there is good progress made, and there's more progress that is likely to come. But it is going to require money and time to finish that process. And it's critical that that process be finished and we sign a conservation easement that both the city and the Park District are happy with. John McLaughlin, you have a hand up?
Yeah, thank you for that summary, Frank. I'd like to clarify for everyone what is meant by encumbrances. And the sticking point that Frank was referring to is a sentence in the proposed revision to the conservation easement that reads, if a conflict arises between preserving and restoring the natural features and ecological functions and values of the property and another allowed use, preservation of the natural environment shall be the first priority. And Attorney Mariner's comment was that, quote, the city cannot agree to the district's proposed prioritization language, that being that preservation of the natural environment would be first priority. Continuing with the quote, as it would allow a grantee of the easement to limit or prohibit existing and future uses in the park. All right, so essentially we're talking about is an easement that would restrict development or other uses in the forest, and the city wants to retain that ability and then objects to any easement that would restrict it.
Thanks. I just took the opportunity to call Bob to remind him we were having the meeting at 5 rather than 6. He said he'd be right on. And thank you for that detail. That's a very crisp and clear detail, and I appreciate it, John. Ed, you were at the meetings. Is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I think you captured it well, Frank. Progress was made, and there is a wee bit left to do in this negotiation. However, as everybody may understand, the last little bits may be the most difficult to negotiate. Nevertheless, I think John McLaughlin's summary pretty much puts it in the very clear language. We believe that the woods should be protected through the language of the easement, not pursuant to an administrative process that yields a master plan. And maybe that's another way to define the differences between the Parks District at this point and the city.
The other bit of information that's relevant is we also need an assignee we will go away in September. In September, we will be gone if not before. And when we do, that easement has to be carried by someone else. And the group we've negotiated furthest with and are closest to getting agreement with and willingness to take this on is the Land Trust. There are a couple of features of that everyone should be aware of. One is that they estimate that they need between $50,000 and $200,000 to put into a risk pool that would then be used to defend the easement, and that what that number actually ends up being will depend on the specifics in the conservation easement. It could be as much as $200,000. That's why there's $200,000 in our budget now at the end of last year, is we set that aside specifically so that we would have the option of working with the Land Trust. They are our first and most developed prospect for taking this over. We have several other options that are interested, and I appreciate and very much am gratified by the fact that there are other people willing to take this on. One of the challenges is the Land Trust has said that if it is too vague, if there is not a defensible conservation easement, they are not willing to take it on. And I don't think in my interpretation that we are at a place where we have agreement with the city on a conservation easement that the Land Trust would in fact accept, given what they've talked with us about. Bob, thank you for joining us, and we are just going over, as a precursor to our other discussion, providing information about the current status of negotiation about the conservation easement and the potential for that conservation easement being accepted by a willing partner. Did you want to? I know you didn't hear all the discussion, but if you wanted to add your thoughts about where we're at with the conservation easement and with identifying a holder for that easement once we go away in September.
Yeah, first let me apologize to you, Frank, and also the board for not being here on time. For some reason, I had it in my head that it was 6 o'clock, and I was in the middle of another phone call when you called. I'm glad you did. It went longer than I thought. So as you've mentioned, I'm sure we met with the city, with Alan Mariner and Nicole Oliver last Tuesday. Based on that discussion, I sent some revisions that I sent to the board. And then I also sent the board back what the city sent to me today. I would say that the discussions we have had have been sort of bigger picture issues. One being the priority of the natural environment preservation and the need to state that more clearly. That's run into a concern by the city about if there is some conflict eating up all the potential allowed uses. I tend to think there is room for a meeting of the minds on this issue, but we're not there yet. There is another issue on making sure animals are on leash. That was something initially the city didn't really want to do, but they did come around in this last version, if you saw it, that they tried to meet us most of the way on that issue. I don't think it's quite there because they don't have assurances on compliance, making sure that there's enforcement, which I know is one of the issues the board has had. And as a city that doesn't have law enforcement, they're very careful about wanting to make commitments, adequate law enforcement. I mean, not any, but they're concerned that they don't have enough police officers. I suggested that we don't necessarily need police officers, but perhaps volunteers can be trained to go through the park and educate people things like that were important issues to the board. We can have all the assurances we want in a master plan and a conservation easement, but if the agreement principles are not enforced and people are taking dogs off leash anyway, it doesn't really help. So one of the things that I did talk with Alan Mariner about this afternoon was doing something like that. And he said something along the lines of, well, that requires funding. We don't really have extra funding. I said, it's conceivable the Park District could help with some of that funding to get a program like that off the ground, to make sure and educate people about the impact of dogs off leash, because there certainly are dogs off leash in the forest. So he acknowledged that. We kind of let that issue lie. Where we ended up, I think, is I agreed that I think the city has made a good faith effort in negotiation with us so far, but we don't really have the gap closed on what we would like to see in the conservation easement and what the city has agreed to. The city has pointed out that they've made a lot of concessions, and I would say that they have made a number of them to things that we've wanted. Not quite all of them, and a couple of them being really important, like the prioritization of the natural environment in the event of a conflict with another use. So I suggested that what we probably want to do is have a meeting with the land trust, actually, even perhaps before we agree to assign the conservation easement to the land trust. I do know from talking with Rand Jack last week that he would be willing to sit down and meet with the city and the Park District, even if the land trust hasn't been assigned the easement yet. He's willing to do that. Alan Mariner agreed this afternoon with me on the phone. He said, I certainly will meet with you, the Park District, and the land trust if you want to do that. And as you'll recall, that's a big change from the original city position, which was we'll only meet with the land trust. So I think there's been some real progress made, both in terms of how we've related with each other, and also on ironing out some of the terms of the conservation easement. So even though we're not quite there yet, I do believe that we can make some progress. One of the things that we don't know for certain is even if we wanted to assign the easement to the land trust, we don't know whether the land trust will accept it. Rand Jack made it very clear to me that before they accept the conservation easement, he would want to make sure there were changes to provide more certainty in the easement than exists presently. So we do need to involve them, and do so fairly quickly, in my opinion, because if it turns out we don't come to agreement, we'll have to turn to someone else as an assignee for the conservation easement. All that being said, one of the strong efforts we've been making is to try to bring this to a rapid conclusion. We pushed very hard this week to do that, including working over the weekend. I know a number of us have been, but we're not quite there yet. And I think we do need to continue to allow for some additional work to be done to get there. It will take something to get to where we need to go, and leave, sort of a worst case.
And the party itself,
maybe we need to find somebody else
and between a rock and a hard place.
to take.
On the one hand, of course,
I'm hearing a little background. Okay, that's gone. That's kind of a summary of my summary. And Frank, I apologize if and everyone, I apologize if I repeated a lot of what you have already said.
Good, Bob. Thank you. It's useful information. Bob, I had a technical question for you. Did Robin and Mensa kind of voice two different things? One is that is this a public hearing at this point, or is this just our discussion and we're asking for general community input at the beginning of the meeting?
So you closed the public hearing last time. You could reopen it in your discretion, or you could simply leave it open as, or take public input and let people speak and take that into account. Either way is okay. It probably amounts to something very similar in the end.
Great. What I'd like to do then is just go ahead and open the meeting for public comment, and feel free to comment on the levy, the budget, the conservation easement, and I'd like to have a general discussion and welcome your comments. Mr. Geyer, I know you haven't been here much lately, and I'd love to hear from you first, please.
Well, good evening, Frank. Hope my volume okay for you. Does this work? Very good. Thank you. Yes, haven't been here for a while, and great to see that you're having a thorough discussion. I'm going to limit my comments to the budget. There's many technical issues on the easement and conservation easement to be worked out, but the key piece I want to stress on the budget, you know that I have testified in the past as to the resources that are available to the Parks District through the levy and what has been achieved. And that the key absolute foundational point begins with the document that was done. You know, maybe you're not seeing it. There we go. The initial petition that was placed before the voters that said we want to create a park district. That established the moral authority of what the existence of this district today. And that moral authority said, establish a park district, place a levy before the people to pay the loan for the land that was the 100-acre woods that we're speaking of. That has been achieved. We all know that's been achieved. I testified last year that there's going to be a significant balance in here tonight. It's been confirmed. You have about approximately $270,000 balance in the accounts. I don't believe that the Parks District has any moral authority today to pass a levy for 2023. You have the resources, the loan's been paid off, you have a balance, no tax levy is needed. You have resources to complete your job over the next 9-10 months. I hear this evening, September, I'm guessing 2023 is when that district will dissolve. You have the resources to finish your job. Please do it. But I see no reason at all for any levy at all, regardless of your discussion tonight, because you're going as a district beyond just paying the loan to other things out in the future that were not part of the initial creation of this entity. So my request to all 5 of the board members, because I believe each one of you signed this petition. If not, I may be mistaken, but I know certainly at least 4 of you did. The long-term members of this district did sign it. There is no need for a tax levy, and I would request your vote along those lines. But thank you, Frank, for recognizing me.
Thanks, Bill. Appreciate your comment. Jerry, would you like to speak?
Yeah, I'll throw in my comments. They disagree with Bill's a little bit. I appreciate his passion for this area, though. I was on the core steering committee that put this levy in front of the voters. In fact, I wrote the petition and had it reviewed by legal counsel and all the other core steering committee members. And one key issue that stood out was that there were a significant group of people that we talked to in the process of putting this proposal together that were reluctant to simply give the money to the city. They wanted to make sure we had something in return. And that's where the concept of the conservation easement arose. And we were clear in all our information, all our campaign information. We were clear in the information sheet that we passed out with the petition that we intended to buy a conservation easement to assure the conservation of this property in perpetuity. And that the primacy of conservation, of preservation, was clear throughout the campaign, and it was clear in all our literature. And in response to John McLaughlin's comments on the cities wanting latitude on that, yes, we knew there was going to be continued recreation, but we always framed that in terms of its context within the basic conservation of the process, that conservation and preservation was primary. Somewhere on a hard drive, I have all that information, but it was very clear to the petitioners that that's what we were doing. I don't think we would have gotten enough people to sign the petition had we not been clear about that. We were getting that much pushback. So the other thing that I'd like to point out, well, I want to thank the commission for being diligent on this issue. I think you guys are doing a great job, and following it through to its final conclusion is really important to the success of this whole effort. And another thing I would point out is you're bringing it in under budget. The voters authorized 28 cents a thousand assessment for 10 years. And it's going to be run at a lower rate than the voters authorized for. So thanks for pulling that off and being diligent about that. That's pretty much all I have. Well, the other thing that I would say is at this point, hearing what I'm hearing, given the urgency of deciding whether there is to be a levy or not, given the uncertainty of the conservation easement, I would strongly favor a very modest levy for this next year so you can cover your bases and fulfill the obligations that this district has to the petitioners and the voters who were looking forward to the permanent preservation of this property. So that's it.
Thank you very much. Steve Oliver, would you like to speak up at all? No one has to. Yeah, thank you. I don't know who Monica is, but Monica, if you'd like to speak, you can unmute and speak. You unmuted. There you are. If you don't want to, that's totally fine as well. There's a phone number down there, and it just starts with, it ends in 755. If you'd like to speak, please just unmute and share your thoughts with us.
It looks like Barbara wanted to.
I'm the phone number who's 8755, but who should go first?
I think you are. No, it's 755 on the end. You can, please.
Okay, yeah, this is Dana Lyons calling. Hello, everyone, and thanks for having this meeting and letting a few of us weigh in. I agree with Jerry that for me, I was working on protecting the Chuckanut forest, and very much the intent was to create a conservation easement with a. Oh, can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, can you hear? Okay.
Yeah, there's a little bit of echo, but not bad.
Yeah.
Oh, here, I'll go. Let me take off the. Here, how about that? Is that a bit better?
Good.
Yeah, to me, I'm getting echo too. The main intent was to create a conservation easement, in particular to protect the ecology. This being the largest remaining privately held forest, for the wildlife. And I worked on protecting the Hoag's Park area, and I remember the city parks were going to come in and build a road-sized trail around the park, and I invited the head of the Parks Commission, and he and some other people came out, and we walked around the trail, and I asked them to imagine Bellingham in 20, 30 years when we're a much, much larger city, which we can all see us going in that direction. And I said, imagine, when we're a city of, 200,000+, how valuable this beautiful little pond is going to be. And the difference of experience for the second grade classes that would come to witness this pond walking around and being able to have the, in a 3 or 4 foot size trail versus a 12 foot size road, brushing up against the leaves, seeing the wildlife, really feeling a part of the forest. And they were moved, and they agreed not to do that size of road. And what I see with our city, we have a great parks department, and there's different ways of approaching each park. I personally think that this park in particular has so many sensitive wetlands and everything, and it's a good place for the wildlife, that we should really work to manage it for the health of the wildlife. That's doesn't mean that hikers can't go there. I think there's probably a place we could have a bike trail that wouldn't interfere. But I really like the points earlier that, how is the city supposed to enforce that? That's a really good point. But my guess is if there were nice signs, metal signs that were hard to wreck, that explained to the people that this is a rare wildlife place, and explained why hikers and bikers should stick to the trail, and explains why keeping dogs on a leash will help the wildlife. I think a lot of people will go, oh, okay, that's cool. This is a special spot, and they'll do it. And for those who don't, those signs help the other people who are out there who want that to happen. They can, hopefully politely remind folks, hey, this is a special area for wildlife. Please put your dog on the leash, etc. Now, to do that, to make nice signs, obviously takes money. Our city has a lot of priorities. One thing, while I was very excited about our Parks District, is because our neighborhood, we're closest to the park, we're going to benefit the most from the park. And it seemed fair that those of us closest to it would pony up more than the rest of the city, and that's what we did. And while I understand the arguments to say, hey, we paid off a loan, let's end the tax levy, I think it's a good idea to extend the tax levy to take care of some of these educational things, and to work, retain the lawyers if necessary, to negotiate with the city, because the city has ideas and they've got a lot of strength, and to protect the wildlife and protect the ecology, we're going to need some economic muscle also. And while that does extend, it could extend if you move the levy, I think that's a worthwhile thing. All right, that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dana. Appreciate your comment very much.
Sure.
Brad Rose, I see you're down there. If you don't want to speak, that's totally fine. But if you do, we welcome it.
No, hi. Can you hear me?
You can, Brad.
All right. Well, first off, let me just say it's been a while, and it's good to see a lot of the people in the bar here I've not talked to or seen in a long time. But sorry, my camera's not fully working, so I don't have it on. But at any rate, it's good to be here. I've kind of been watching from afar, but not really with detail on the progress of the park and whatnot, or in the district. But I just want to give a big thanks to everyone who's been involved in this from the beginning. I think what the park district was built for has been a total success, and it's finished early. And I think that's something that we should definitely, everyone involved at the beginning and during and the end, should be very proud of. Now as it's filling out, I kind of agree with Bill before, where he was saying, okay, we have money in the hopper. What more would we need another levy for? And, looking at the success of the park district, I feel that it would be a better served purpose for not only, the community and the taxpayers of our district, but also let's look elsewhere, other communities that want to do such a thing that what we did here. Because I remember when we first started doing this and came up with the idea of the park district, the whole thing of the people that were against it was they are going to tax you, they are going to keep taxing you, and they will never let it go until they can. And if we were to, or the park district were to, I understand it's going away next year, but if we were able to conclude it for the tax part and let it go, then that is a win-win for everyone, the taxpayers and these other communities that would have a way to say, look, see what Bellingham did, they did it, they succeeded, and they didn't just keep taxing you even though they could. And that's my thought on this. It sounds like from what I've listened in on some of the past meetings and just hearing the initial conversation from tonight, that the getting the conservation easement on there is going to be a tricky thing to do, but I don't think a bunch more money is going to necessarily help make that happen. I think it's just people need to come to an agreement and make a decision and say, yes, we will do this. And it's not us. But I don't know that taxing another, for another year, even if it's at a smaller rate, it's going to really help that very much. But at any rate, I obviously will defer to what you guys, your judgment on this, because you've done a great job with it. And I feel that it's a total success to this point for what the purpose of the levy was initially. At any rate, thank you, everyone, and good to see you again.
Thank you, Brad. It's good to see you too, buddy, even if it's just in letters. And so you've got your hand up. Would you just unmute and speak up?
Yeah, please. Thank you. Hey, I just wanted to thank you, Brad, for your comments. But I also wanted to reassure Dana that the master plan takes care of the signage issue. It's part of the phase 1 of the master plan is the design, and experts are working on the design right now to have signage about why we're staying on the trail and why our dogs are on their leashes, et cetera, et cetera. So that, I think you can rest easy that that is in the works right now. And the other thing is, we have legal counsel. Our Bob Carmichael has been with us these 10 years, and has been leading our negotiations with the city very beautifully, but he's not free. He's not a volunteer like the rest of us. We need a little bit of an easement, a little bit of a levy to pay our legal expenses. And especially don't forget, we got sued once, and that cost a fortune for us to defend ourselves, and we won. So, and we won on the issue of needing to preserve the integrity of the ecosystem besides collecting money. So I just want to point out that 28 cents on the whatever the levy was, it was 28 cents per whatever the assessment was, switching to going from 28 to 2 cents might be all we really need going forward. So I just wanted to make those 3 points about the signage, the master plan, our legal counsel, and what the levy would be covering, factually. Thanks.
Thank you, Vincent. Andy Levito, if you'd like to speak, just unmute and have your turn.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. I wanted mostly to echo what Bill and Brad have already said, that it seems to me from reviewing some of your previous meetings and the budget documentation that you've shared that I think you already have enough money in your accounts to cover what you need to do for the next year. And I would encourage you to not pass any additional levy for 2023. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. Barbara.
Hi. Well, it's been good to hear everybody's comments. And I just want to weigh in on the importance of this property. It's very unique to our community. It's in an urban area. It's precious. These wetlands are irreplaceable. And I've been involved, as you all know, for the decades to try and protect this property, and finally worked to get I wasn't involved like Jerry to draft it, but to get people to understand what it was and why we needed to protect it. So I really am strongly advocating for a strong conservation easement to protect this property. And we aren't there. The city hasn't agreed to the most fundamental one, which is the preservation is number one, use is a secondary priority. And until we can get that, we haven't fulfilled what the voters voted for. Now, there may be people who said, oh, I only voted to pay it, to buy it. But it was with a clear understanding that this was to be preserved and not another park. So I'm disappointed, having followed this and been at your meetings for a long time. I'm very disappointed that the city has not been as willing to get this resolved, because if that had happened, there would be no need for a levy. But we do need to have resources to pay our attorney and to pay whoever is going to hold the conservation easement. And if that's a 200,000, then we have that, but we won't have it if we have to spend it on other fees and other things to get the conservation easement in place. So it's a very small amount. It's been a small amount this year. It's even smaller proposed for next year. And I just encourage you to hang in there, everybody to hang in there for another year so that we can actually protect this property. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Dudley, are you ready to speak? You need to unmute.
I'm unmuted. Well, thank you all. This is amazing. I've not been involved so much lately, and I so appreciate everybody who has been carrying the ball. Dean and I started this project in 1990, and so we've been engaged for 32 years, I believe. And it's just been beautiful. We didn't know what was going to happen when we began Interurban Neighbors. We just knew we were going to get to know our neighbors, and we have. And I am so proud of what our community has done. We are a model on a national and international level of what people can do when they really put their heart and soul to caring about the planet. So as far as preserving the property for, it's always a balance between preserving the natural world, and then of course people have their own interest in human use. So I think there will be plenty of opportunities for human use through hiking trails and carefully constructed bike trails. I so appreciate Dana's suggestion of having good signage. The whole idea of the city not being able to afford enforcement of it. There's a lot of things they can't afford enforcement of. And this is just one small thing that I believe that the people on the parks in the forest there, as they're using it with the correct signage and with the education that the many volunteers who already are engaged can carry on. I think that's handled. I hear both sides of the tax thing. I agree that, gee, it'd be great not to do another tax. I also am hearing, and this might be a selling point for the city, if we do need to do a tax, it's because we're not creating clarity right now with the city, and that might be a reason for doing this very small tax. I'm a big property owner. I will be paying for that, and I'm more than happy to. Of course, everyone doesn't feel the way I do in that case. But so I'm kind of weighing in both. I having a little hard time with, I like the idea of not having another tax. Gee, look how good we are. We didn't do another tax, and we're Democrats, or I don't know if we all are, but it doesn't matter. I'm open either way on that. But I really do think that we can probably most likely do a good job through use of volunteers, about people who care about this place, educating the public, and it'll be a great opportunity to continue having involvement. I agree that turning it over to the city, I can see why that is a problem, because it's not necessarily carrying our original vision. So I guess I'll just go on record that I'm okay with the tax if that feels necessary, because we need to continue to protect this land, this sacred forest. So I just want to thank you all so much.
Thanks, Dudley, and it's good to see you. Thank you for coming.
And
Steve,
Dean's right over here listening. He's listening. He's hearing us.
okay. Steve, did you not want to speak at all? That's okay. I don't mean to push it. Okay, great. Christopher, I think you're the last one in the on the bingo chart here. Would you like to just unmute? And...
Well, I'm glad that I have the last word, so to speak. The comments so far have been on two sides. One is people who don't want to pay the tax, and the other is people who want to preserve the environment of those woods. I would put it that preserving the environment is the moral argument. Originally, what we know of as Bellingham was covered with old growth forest. Loggers cut down all of the big trees. The 100-acre woods was cut around 125 years ago. But the forest is resilient, and now we have a mature second growth forest that could become an old growth forest again, complete with its mostly intact biome, if we respect and preserve it. We created the CCFPD to protect this postage stamp part of Bellingham so that respectful people can enjoy a natural forest. Dogs are not respectful. Cyclists out for a workout are not respectful. It's essential that dogs be kept on leash and that bicycles be restricted to improved trails with a speed limit. This can only be accomplished with a strong and enforced conservation easement and a vigorous education plan. Language in the master plan is not good enough because the master plan can be changed or simply not enforced. A decade ago, the mayor was trying to sell part of the 100-acre woods. It's only a matter of time before politicians and or the park department decide they want to sell or do something else detrimental to the forest. It's a moral argument to preserve it, and I support a new levy of whatever amount is necessary to be sure a strong conservation easement is transferred to an organization that is funded and will enforce it. Thank you.
Thank you, Christopher. Kind of having heard from those that are here, I'm going to close the public comment part of the meeting.
Wait,
You have something?
I just had a thought to just bring up that and I'm sorry to see that Steve's on another call, and Steve Oliver, our treasurer, can't hear this question, but once the commission goes away, then the collection of the balance of the levy will also stop. Am I correct? Steve, can you answer that? I mean, the county won't be collecting that tax after October of 2023 because the commission will have finished up its business and dissolved. Am I right? So it's not even a full year of this levy.
I do not.
I think.
You know, my interpretation of the statute and you know, Bob, you're welcome to weigh in on this, but you know, at the point that the district dissolves, it goes away. I believe that all of the assets, the liabilities of the district, they're all going to a sheet to the city of Bellingham. And I would assume that would include any outstanding tax collections at that point.
My understanding, Vince, and we did look into it, we couldn't find a clear answer to that question and had to conclude that if the levy is adopted, it would be for the full year. And just because the park district dissolved would not stop the levy. I believe the funds would at that point go to the city of Bellingham.
And whatever residual there is in our account would also go to the city of Bellingham, right?
Correct.
And to be perfectly clear, to the general fund of the city of Bellingham. We might ask them to spend it in a certain way, but it would go to the general fund. Is that right, Steve? And thank you for coming, Steve, and being here, because these are questions that it's
sure.
useful to have an answer to. Thank you.
I would have to go back and look at that, but I believe that is correct, that it just, the monies would go to the general fund of the city of Bellingham.
Yeah, let me be clear about that. Any residual funds do in fact go to the city of Bellingham by statute. We have talked about asking as part of perhaps a negotiation with them that the funds be earmarked for this particular park rather than the city general fund. And do I think they could legally agree to that? I think they probably could, but we haven't had that discussion with them yet.
Yeah, this is Jerry. I was just going to suggest the Greenways Endowment Fund as being a source for depositing those funds that might be agreeable by the city and the district.
Mhm.
Well, thanks everybody for your comments and thoughts. As I said, I'm gonna close the public comment part and now move on to the difficult work of the commissioners. And we need to decide tonight what our budget will be for next year in a final way, as well as if there's going to be a levy, and if so, which of the options that were developed might be the best one. As you recall, there were four budgets, and there were four options for levies: no levy, a 2.25 cent levy, a continuation of what was this last year, which is a 4 cent levy per $1,000 assessed valuation. And there was an interest in looking to see what a 6 cent levy would look like. And all those options were presented at the last meeting. Today, with all the input we've gotten and all the input between last meeting and this meeting, and in view of the future responsibilities we have through September, I think we then need to turn to the issue of what budget are we going to adopt and what levy are we going to adopt. So I'd like to first just say that I've given it serious consideration, and I'm definitely in favor of having a levy. I think it should be the lowest levy, the 2.25 cents. I think that gives us money to do the things that we need to do legally. It can be expensive, and although it's promising that we'll have agreement with the city, it's not a certainty by any means. And I think we won't have the option of raising more money after tonight. This is it. And if we are, and that's something that I think the city knows. And if they have funds and we don't, it's going to be challenging for us. We can't go beyond that in terms of resources. So the question as I see it is, do we want a resource that will allow us to finish the negotiation with the city about the conservation easement and to go on to support the city in the ways that we believe are necessary to carry out the mission that we have of protecting and preserving this parcel of land. But I'm happy to open it for general discussion at this point and just see what each of you thinks, and then we should conclude by bringing this to a vote.
I'll speak up first, Frank.
Don, please do.
I'll break the ice since I haven't said a word yet tonight, but that was very well put. And I pretty much agree with you. And I really liked what Dana Lyons kind of reminded me of, that if you look at our park system, it's pretty hard to beat. And you look at the different parks we have, they're all different. I mean, you don't treat Marine Park like Northridge or Elizabeth Park, like Fairhaven, and on and on. So why can't the city acknowledge that the 100-acre wood is unique. And so we should have different ways of dealing with it and treating it. And so I think that is all about the conservation easement. I mean, look at our mission statement. We haven't accomplished it yet. So I'm all in favor of a levy, and I agree it should be the little one, but hopefully that'll cover legal expenses if we need them. Okay, I had my say.
Other commissioners would like to speak? Yeah.
I'd go for whatever levy it takes, and I'd go for the highest one possible. I don't mind. I got nothing to worry about. I'm not up for election again. I'm 76 years old. You ain't going to intimidate me. I'll go for the highest one possible. Because even at 6 cents, it's nothing compared. We started out at 28 cents per thousand. And last year we dropped it down to 4.6 cents per thousand. So people got a good deal last year, and it'll even be better this year. But I think there's some major flaws in the master plan that really the other departments within the city have to take care of. Like the fire department has no tools to fight a fire, a forest fire. The public works department hasn't done a plan on where the water supply is in the area that they can use for a fire, and they should do some more planning there, you know. But I haven't seen anything except the park department putting out anything, and so I'll go for whatever we could get, you know. If you guys, whatever you want, I'll go for the highest one.
John, you got your hand up. You're so polite. Thank you.
Thank you. So two comments on a question. First comments responding to Dana Lyon's comment and that of a few others. As the master plan proceeded, I developed a project for one of my courses to map all the trails in the 100-acre wood, not just the ones that appear on various official maps, and to apply the buffer from the paper that Frank found regarding the impacts of recreational use of trails extending into the natural habitats on various wildlife and other organisms. And the results from that, students just submitted their final report. I haven't had a chance to review the final one, but in the draft, if you take all of the existing trails, there's zero area beyond a 75-meter buffer, right? So all sensitive wildlife would be impacted. There's no refuge in the entire 100-acre wood for those wildlife. If you go with the master plan trails, the ones on figure 12 in the master plan, their implementation plan, then there's a small area beyond a 75-meter buffer. And if the master plan uncertain trails with uncertain designation were removed, you have a substantially larger area beyond the trails. And then if you went with some of the ideas that Frank shared in the final master planning process with a substantially reduced trail, still an extensive trail layout with large loop trails and that sort of thing, but fewer secondary trails, then you have a much larger area of refuge for wildlife. With that context, my second comment is that I find it deeply regrettable that the city's lawyer refused to recognize the importance of providing assurance and priority for environmental protection, to recognize the bottom line or the priority for the park district. The priority that prevailed in court, that recognized that we're more than just paying off a loan, that we actually have a fundamental protection purposes, and did not do that. And so hence we are at a point now where we feel a need to extend the levy. That was, I think, an unforced error. If the city was willing to negotiate, was willing to recognize that and even see it as a common interest rather than provide flexibility for a future administration to develop the place more, we wouldn't be having this discussion. We could zero out the levy and be fine. But because of the city's preference to retain legal flexibility to use the place in the future in ways that people aren't comfortable with now, we're in this spot. So those are my two comments. My question, I think, really goes to Bob, and that is, if we look at the lowest non-zero levy with a 2.25% per thousand rate, it adds several budget items beyond the zero levy. In other words, it allocates resources from that levy to three things. You've got additional legal services, which I think we're going to need, given that we need additional negotiation for the conservation easement, transfer, consultation with a third party, and all that sort of thing. There's additional $10,000 for education. And I can imagine there are various ways where that the park district could provide resources for that the city might not be able to or want to. And then the third is enforcement. And this follows a discussion I had with Frank this afternoon. I'm uncertain as to whether the park district has the legal authority to raise money to fund enforcement. We hold an easement, but we don't own or manage the property. The city owns and manages the property, and enforcement is part of that authority. And I wonder if we were to raise money for enforcement and then transfer the city so that they have enforcement resources that they claim not to have now, does that cross a line where we are now functioning as a manager of the property and not just holding conservation?
It's an excellent question. We are, as a park district, statutorily enabled to manage property. We don't manage this particular property by agreement with the city, under the interlocal agreement and the conservation easement that we have in place right now. It doesn't mean we don't have the ability to manage. But because, when I say ability, I mean the statutory ability. But because of the situation we are in with the interlocal agreement, which delegates all management to the city, and the conservation easement, which does the same thing, it is probably not the best description of activity to call out enforcement. We could contribute funds to the city for purposes of education and what I might call quasi-enforcement through something similar to a docent program, if we chose to do something of helping start volunteers in the forest to educate people about keeping dogs on leash, for example, and on trail use and not wandering about off trail. Those kinds of things would be certainly within our ability to help fund while we're still in existence. In terms of actually, if by enforcement you mean issuing citations to people for misdemeanors or gross misdemeanors and bringing them to court, then that is not something that we have the authority to do.
Bob, I don't think that was in, just to point of information is I don't think that was ever proposed. I think the idea was we would give the city the money to do that, who I think does have the authority. So the specific question is not, would we do it? Because that's not envisioned. Could we provide funding to the city so that they could do it? I think is the question.
Yeah, I do believe we could. I think that these line item descriptions can be amended if at some point it's decided that the funding is necessary for another descriptor like education as opposed to enforcement. But it is a possibility to help the city with enforcement should the park district choose to do that.
Thanks, Bob. Ed, you're the only one that hasn't spoken up. You want to render an opinion or?
Oh, yes, I have some comments. So let's say none of us live in Bellingham, and but we have friends who live here, and they speak highly of the parks that many of us tonight have already praised. And as a visitor, we go visit our friends and come to Bellingham and go to 100 Acre Woods, go to various other park areas in Bellingham, and we say, wow, this is great. Now that I've seen this in person, I'm a fan, and I want to do everything I can to support Bellingham's greenways and parks. So I lived here in the late 80s, before the Greenways program existed, before many of the issues we've discussed tonight came into play. And then I came back here in 2018 and can see the obvious benefits that I missed out over those 20 or 30 years in between. And I'm the new person on the commission, and I have professional expertise in many of the areas we're talking about. I agree with Bob in terms of enforcement versus funding enforcement versus helping volunteers. And the intent of the commission moving forward, if we do approve a new levy, would not be enforcement, it would be primarily education. And that can be done in a variety of ways and needs to be done. So if I want to tie what I said as a kind of an outer space visitor to Bellingham, seeing the greenways in action and the parks in action for the first time, what happens when you have firsthand experience with 100 Acre Woods is that you deeply appreciate the work that the commission has done over the last 10 years, and you deeply appreciate the citizens who have been willing to be taxed to fund the purchase of the woods, and here we are tonight. When I attended the meeting with Bob and Frank and the city last week, it was my first visit to 100 Acre Woods in regard to a negotiating session with the city, with the attorney, with Parks, with our attorney, and with Frank. Coming into that meeting, I was leaning against a levy. When I left that meeting, I now would prefer a levy and would vote for that given an opportunity tonight. I think we need that money to take care of business, to finalize the many details beyond the actual purchase of the land that the levy mostly funded. If we don't act, and we need a little bit more money to do that, whether that action is education, assisting the city in doing X, Y, and Z, having legal funds ready to continue on through most of the next year, whatever actions we use, I think that the smallest levy on the table, which is Exhibit A and embodied in Resolution 24 tonight, needs our vote. Seeing the city in action, I am not at all convinced that they understand conservation as much as the Park District does, and the citizens who have supported us all the way through want to see manifest going forward. Those are my comments.
Thank you. I guess I just like to thank everybody, all the people, Dudley and some people I haven't seen for a long time, as well as all of you that have been here every week. I think we've had a robust discussion. I heard from many different points of view. Had some experts amongst us, Bob and Steve, to contribute to the issue. But I think it's time to make a motion and make a decision. Do I hear a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion. I motion that under the material described in Budget Exhibit A and Resolution 24, that the commission votes on the least onerous levy amount, the smallest levy for the period going forward.
So the 2.25 cents per thousand for 2023. All right. Do I hear a second? John, are you seconding?
I'm seconding that.
All right, so it's moved and seconded. Further discussion?
I think it should be higher.
I agree with you.
Having heard some discussion, we still have the motion in a second for the 2.25 cents. I'll go ahead and call the question for that. All those in favor of the 2.25 cents, raise your right hand and say aye.
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 It's 4. And you abstaining or voting against you?
Voting against.
Okay. 4, the motion passes.
Yeah.
I think that's the extent of our business tonight, unless there's other issues that people would like to raise. I think we do have.
Chair, Frank?
Sure.
So the way that was framed, I assume that you were voting on the levy. You also need to vote on the budget. You need to approve the budget. We have a separate resolution on the budget.
That's correct.
And that needs to be done tonight as well. And on that one, you know, I might suggest you might consider combining the categories of education and enforcement into one category rather than breaking them out as enforcement and education. Just a thought.
Sure. So we have a recommendation from our legal counsel about the proposed budget. Do I hear a motion about that issue? It's a bifurcated thing that Bob offered. He said, we've got to, well, we need to consider that one since that's the levy that we've chosen. And then do we want to combine education enforcement into one category?
Could we rename that category conservation implementation or some such?
We could do that too. You're the board. You can do whatever you want.
That would be
within the boundaries of the RCWs.
When we have a motion that could be seen as a friendly amendment, or you could make a motion with that clarification to start with.
Do we have a motion on the budget yet? I don't think we do.
No, that's what I mean. He could make the motion
right
now as a primary motion with that as part of it, or if somebody else moves, then could be a amendment.
Before we vote, Christopher has his hand up. He might have something that might inform our discussion or decision.
Christopher.
No, actually, I'm just confused about the vote on your original motion. What was the result? 3-2?
The vote was 4-1 in favor of the 2.25 cent levy.
Okay, did John Hymas have his hand up?
John, did you vote, John? You did, didn't you? By voice?
It was 3-2.
Pardon me?
That's what I saw, 3-2.
John,
It was
did you
3-2.
did you vote for the levy?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I heard you say so.
No, I went along with you.
Okay.
Sticks together. We voted for this thing.
So thank you for the clarification. Thank you for bringing that up. And it still passes, recognizing and let the record show that 2 of our commissioners wanted a higher levy. Jerry, point of information? Jerry?
Yeah, I just wanted to suggest the word stewardship in place of enforcement. And in my earlier comments, I neglected to say that, you know, some of the angst about this thing is the lack of the city's ability to do the stewardship component of this property and have money for that. And you might consider that in your negotiations with the holder of the conservation easement to see if they can play a role in helping the city with that element. It's quite common these days for nonprofits to assist public agencies in that capacity. So that would be part of the discussion, I would think, of with the potential holder of the conservation easement, just to aid in that effort. And in terms of enforcement, a light hand is often way more effective in these, you know, in these areas than the heavy hand. It's only rarely that you need the heavy hand, and that's only if things get pretty carried away. That's it.
Thank you, Jerry. If we make a motion, we can then have further discussion, or we can just keep discussing. What's your pleasure, gentlemen?
I have a comment. I would consider enforcement slash your term. Gosh. Anyway, stewardship. Yes. Well, how do you steward someone that's camping out in the woods? You enforce them to leave. But no, I agree. There are two different forms, and I'd go for the enforcement slash stewardship myself. Thanks.
Just to ask, my understanding was that the concept of stewardship included both education and enforcement. Is that correct? Yeah, Ed's nodding his head. So I think we got that those would be both part of that concept of stewardship. And as Jerry pointed out, obviously heavy on education. That's the place you got to work. And then there's going to be a few people that aren't going to be educated. But we still need a motion, and then we can come back and discuss it again. But if somebody could formulate a motion, that would be helpful. With regard to the budget for 2023.
So Frank, please provide a little bit of context, even if it's rehashing. What exactly are you asking us for?
Oh, we need a motion to approve. We've approved the levy. We also need to approve a budget. They're two separate documents. And so we've approved the levy. The budget that comes with the levy is a budget based on 2.25 cents per assessed valuation. And so we need to approve that budget or amend that budget if we wish. And the discussion that I've heard is to change the categories to bring enforcement and education into one group and and rename that category stewardship, so that those funds can be more flexibly dealt with going forward.
Well, in that case, I would make a motion to change the language in the budget to stewardship from the current enforcement education language. And I would further make a motion, or include it in this one motion, to approve the budget, so amended.
And just a point of clarification then, Ed, is your motion to combine the two line items, enforcement and education, into one line item that is entitled stewardship?
Yes, that would be my intent.
And for the 2.25 cent budget, or affiliated budget. Yeah.
And so that new line item would amount to $50,000.
That would be correct.
We'll second it. I move it.
So moved by Ed, seconded by Hugh. Now we have time for further refinement or discussion or suggestions. Hearing none, I'll go ahead and call the question then. All those in favor of the 2.25 cent budget with the consolidation of education and enforcement under the category of stewardship. All those in favor this time, raise your right hand. So that's unanimous. And John Hymas, I do want to apologize for not getting it right before. I thought I heard you say yes, so it's better to get that hand up, but you didn't. It should have been more careful, but thank you.
Sure.
So now I believe that does conclude our business for this evening, for our special meeting. Are there any other issues that we need to address this evening?
The only other thing I have to make sure is we have a game plan for having the levy resolution and the budget resolution executed and filed with the county clerk, as we do every year. And that has to be done by November 30th. Robin has her hand up.
Yeah, Robin.
I have a question for you on that, Bob. Do you have something more that you have to send to me for me to send to them? It seems like you do, or do I? Yeah.
Well, actually, we do need to make a change in that Exhibit A on the budget that was just modified. That's something that you could probably do if you want us to look at it, that's fine, or do it, that's fine too. It's simply combining those two categories, enforcement and education, into one line item labeled stewardship for a total of $50,000 for 2023. Again, that's under the 2.25 cent levy. So we need to change that line item, or those two line items, into one in the budget, but otherwise the documents are ready to go.
Okay, so I will make that change on Wednesday morning when I'm back. And I guess the only question I have is let's see. Is everybody around Wednesday, or are you not around, Frank, on Wednesday, or are you on San Juan's?
Yeah, I do work in San Juan, but I'll be back in the evening, and I could do it at Prudential in the morning, or perhaps someone else would volunteer to be the shuttler of paperwork.
Well, I could shuttle the paper around because I can walk, but we have to submit it on Wednesday.
Yeah, you're running it too close to, I mean, if your flight is late, we're SOL.
So what I would like to suggest is that
Robin, how about
the
this?
budget is a separate document, and but I can mail the resolution, and maybe Frank, you could take it out Tuesday and get it signed, or somebody else could agree to take it around and get it signed.
On Tuesday, I'm happy to take it out. And why don't we, Bob, if your staff could prepare that for tomorrow and I could come by and pick it up, I can run it around tomorrow.
Okay, prepare the levy.
I can change the budget and send it to you. I can do that later tonight.
If you can get the budget to me and the resolution and make those modifications, that would be great.
Who are you talking to, Robin or me?
Robin, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Robin, just because you're in New York, she can, electrons and photons, we're all just electrons and photons now, I guess. But if you could do that and get it to me either tonight or tomorrow morning, that would be great if that's possible, Robin.
Yeah, I can do that. It wouldn't take very much to do that. And then if you could get it signed tomorrow,
yeah.
I could deliver it on Wednesday, or you could potentially deliver it. We have to have a scanned copy of it or a Xerox of it for our records.
Right. So I'll just make 2 copies and we can go from there. And then I'm going to be able to find you. John McLaughlin, is there a time tomorrow that works good for you?
Tomorrow, probably afternoon, after 2.
How do I get a hold of you? You can
I'll be at the
home?
university. Just call me.
At the university. I'll call you at the university after 2. John, Imus?
I'm leaving in the morning till Thursday night late.
What time are you leaving in the morning?
Well, the train leaves at 10:58, so I would say 10 or before.
Want me to come by at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock? Pick the time.
8's fine, if it works for you.
I'll be there. Is 8 work for 8? Not long after 8 work for you? Hugh? Are you up and about then?
Oh, yeah.
Great. And Ed, 8, 9 o'clock?
No problema. I'll be on a call beginning at 9, but I can be interrupted. And
You're,
before 9, no
from
problem.
John's house to your house is easy, and then I can get you, and then I can get John McLaughlin.
No problem. Just come on by.
Okay. All right. So I think we have a mechanism. So Robin, if you get that to me tonight or early tomorrow morning, I'll get it circulated to John, then Ed, then Hugh, and then in the afternoon, I'll at 2 or after, I'll catch John at the university. And then I will get it delivered to the.
Frank, do you just want to come into my room or do you want me to try and find you somehow?
I'll call.
Okay.
And if the flu outbreak is over, maybe we could just meet in the lobby or something. Okay, great. Well, thanks,
I have
everybody.
a question
Yeah.
for Bob, and this is all information I have back at home, not with me, but we have to send both the levy and the budget to the assessor's office. Is that right? I mean, I could call them in the morning and find out.
I believe the levy goes to, and Steve Oliver may know, but I believe the levy goes to the county clerk of the council. I think that's what the statute says. And as I would expect the budget too, but I haven't looked at that. I can let you know definitively by Wednesday when you get back, if you want me to, Robin.
Okay, it looks like we're trying to just have Frank deliver it just in case there's some problem with me getting back. I mean, if everything goes as planned, I can do it.
Well,
It's up to
I'll send you both an email with where you have to send it. I believe I know for the levy, it needs to go to the council clerk. I'm not, the budget probably too, but I haven't double checked that one. Steve, do you have any other information on that? Or do you know?
You know, Bob, I'm so downstream from that process that I always assumed it went to the assessor's office because that's kind of where the sausage gets made, but I wouldn't want to guess.
Yeah, no, our levy then becomes a levy approved by the county council, as we all learned a few years ago when we had the debate, the sort of the challenge to our levy at the county council. So I'm confident the levy goes to the council clerk. I'll check on the budget though.
I can also look and see what we did last year, so. Okay, so I will be in touch with people via email, and I will be flying tomorrow between, let's see, 1 and 8 our time, Pacific time. So.
1 p.m. to 8 p.m.
Yeah, I won't actually be in the air that long, but I think that's right.
In transit, as you say.
Yeah.
Well, I think we have a plan for making it happen. So I'll see you in cyberspace later this evening. And thank you very much. And thanks to everybody Steve, thanks for taking your time to come and give us counsel. I really appreciate it. And you, of course, as always, Bob, and the rest of the community members that have come and expressed their concerns and interests, and Vincent, for your long suffering service to this group, even now. Thank you.
Almost done.
And of course,
Thanks,
Christopher-
everybody.
Christopher and
Appreciate it.
Barbara, thanks for being our members. Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Dudley and Dean.
Good to see you, Dudley.
Bravo, bravo. Thank you. Don't
Good
even know.
night.
Good
Good
night.
dinner, love.
Mhm. Boom.
And thanks for holding down the public comment room there, Richard.
Hey, Richard.
Remember to lock the door. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
See you
Bye.
later.
Thanks.
Okay, Robin.
So I
it
just
asked
wanted
me
to
if I want
find
to stop
out if you
recording to the
needed
cloud.
any.
It's telling me it will send you an email when the cloud recording is ready. So you'll probably just get a download link in your email.
Okay, yeah, that sounds great. Thanks for holding down the fort, Richard.
No worries. Thanks for the gig as always.
Okay, talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.